Witchy Book Club. We are doing Spiral Dance by Starhawk. And this is, it's embracing the goddess. So historically, and she does talk about this in the beginning of her book, she talks about how ancient civilizations actually were goddess oriented and everything was the goddess. So when they were digging, when archaeologists and paleontologists have studied ancient cultures and ancient civilizations, what was found were goddess artifacts. There was no God artifacts or Jesus artifacts. There were no crosses found. This is pre-Christ, all right? So we think about that. And I think one thing that keeps coming to my mind is you really have to have a balance. We all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and we have to have a balance. And we have to figure out that balance. So most of us, maybe a past life was alive when the goddess was worshipped. And we can only imagine what a matriarchal society would have been like. And now we're in a very patriarchal society. And we see things in a patriarchal society that are imbalanced. And we really need to have both. We need to have the balance. And something really neat, and we really need to have both. We need to have the balance. And something really neat, I forgot to share. And having goddess and God worship is that there is a balance. And I believe it was on with this book, we've been very inspired. And one of them, we did talk about, what it would be like to have that balance instead of just being lopsided. So right now we're kind of lopsided because it is very patriarchal and we're missing that nurturing aspect that the goddess brings. And I believe that's the first chapter. So this is chapter 5, and the chapter 5 is on the goddess itself. So this chapter is pretty awesome. So I kind of want to kind of jump into some of this, and I wanted to just make sure I did. So this is to request to come up. I do have 10 questions. So as long as the discussion continues and we have 10 and there's still questions that haven't been answered, we'll answer those. Please make sure to give me hearts or thumbs up for follows, and make sure to follow and subscribe if you're not doing so. Before I jump into the questions, I am going to real quick. Okay. All right. I'm going to real quick kind of give, in my bio, there's a way that you can go register for classes. Most of my classes are on my website, but they are all on Eventbrite. I wanted to just kind of point out some really cool ones that are coming up in the future that I really love to share. So I am very, very, very excited about September 28th. It's the Past, Present, and Future Tarot Workshop. And this is going to be a really, really great workshop. We're going to jump into past, present, and future with tarot. I have been working on this class for some time now. And it does include a book, I believe it is extra for the book, but just so that you know, there is a book. So that is on September 28th, and it will be here before we know it, because like I feel like it was just New Year's, but that's just me. Then Saturday, October 4th, this is a Saturday and a Sunday because we are getting into shadow season by the time we hit October, and it will be light and dark. It's a weekend retreat. It is virtual, so it is online. There will be a lunch break, but it'll be about 7 hours of classroom work both days, where I'll be teaching you. We'll be taking time to journal. There'll be meditation, and it will be using astrology, using magical practices and spirituality in order to do basically shadow work. So, and to dive deep into what are we hiding that's our authentic self that we need to pull out. So I'm very excited about that one. My astrology fundamental workshop is on Sunday, October 19th. So that's a really fun workshop. So if you are interested in astrology, this is the basics, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper in the basics so that you're ready. You're ready to dive in, especially if you take like Total Transformation from me or any of these other workshops. I dive a little bit deeper into each specific aspect of different areas of our birth chart. Following that, Crystal Fundamentals is on November 23rd. I believe that's like the week before Thanksgiving. But Crystal Fundamentals, I am going to teach you everything, the science and how we use them metaphysically and in crystal healing. So this is like that hands-on, great jump in, dive in. And so it's really fun if you're interested in crystals and you don't know where to start. I give you like a reading list that also helps you like expand your crystal knowledge, because I only touch base on, I believe it's 25 crystals. So there's a lot of crystals, but not as many as we could have. And there you are, Bren. I'm just going.
What are we talking about? Crystals a little bit?
Yeah. So, well, I'm just going over the classes and workshops that I have before we jump into the book.
Aha.
So, Crystal Fundamentals is coming up in November.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's really beginning. I know you're a little bit more advanced, but it is beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say advanced, it's just that know a lot of everything. And I'm just really eccentric with everything. Oh, crystal grid? Well, I need to send you some images, or actually upload some of the old crystal grids I used to have. Because, I mean, I used to go, like, all out, like, good lord, that's like, how many crystals? 50?
Most of my crystal grids have been taken down because we're moving, and like we're literally like leaving Illinois on the 31st of this month, and I'm like, my husband's like, you have tears in your eyes. I'm like, because this crystal grid has been protecting our house, or this crystal grid.
When they don't know, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he actually, it's really funny. I gave him he was having a really hard time finding a job when he got his work visa, because he came here on a 90-day fiance visa, and no, we are not at all like any of the people on the show. like we've watched a few and we're like, that's not at all like us. They met the wrong people. But so he was going to look for work, and he was kind of having a really hard time finding work when he first got here. So I like charged some crystals. I'm like, keep them in your pocket for your job interview. First job interview he went on with the crystals, offered him work. So he's like, oh, and then he has to drive quite a bit for his job. So I gave him like crystals for car safety that are in our car. And he was helping me at an event once. And I've got all the crystals out, and he's talking to this guy, and the guy's, I'm talking to the wife, and he's talking to the husband. And he's like, my wife has saved my life so many times with her crystals. And ends up selling the guy all the same crystals that he had in his car. I'm like, okay. He's like, I know it's this one and this one and this one. And then he's like, but let me double check. And they were the right ones. I was like, wow, you're getting good. So
Now that's really intriguing because when I hear like trying to attract like an employer, obviously citrine was one of them.
yes,
Another one, well, I wouldn't. Well, I would even consider. Let's see here, was grain adventuring another one?
yes.
Clear quartz, obviously.
Yep. Yeah, I got to amplify it.
And well, because I mean, I would even also say rose quartz, but rose quartz to me is more emotional. And when it comes to like an employer wants to have that kind of grounded, realistic part of it too. But
Yeah. I threw in a sodalite.
oh, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, sunlight does
Mm-hmm.
help with that communication and understanding.
Yes. Yes. I was like, all right. So you're going to just come across, and literally it was the first interview. So, and then, yeah, he's like, you got to charge these when we get to Wyoming, because we're going to be living in Wyoming, he's like, you got to charge these so I get my job really fast in Wyoming. I'm like, don't worry, I will. Yeah. It's hard because like I'm all, what crystals can I keep out handy? And yeah, I had to like tone it down because we're going to be in a little apartment until we buy our house. And I'm like, this little apartment does not have room for the amount of crystals that I wanted to keep out. But all right. I'm just going to do a couple more workshops and we'll jump into the book.
All
And I
right.
kind of jumped into the book and then like took a derailment because I always do derailments. So November 30th is the Tarot Bridge Workshop, and I'm really excited about that. That's going to teach you how to bridge and tell your story, especially if you're a tarot reader or if you're just reading for yourself. And then my favorite class to teach is on December 14th. It is a weekend class. It's Sacred Crystals of the United Kingdom and Ireland. I talk about ley lines. I talk about the sacred places in the United Kingdom and Ireland, and I believe it's like 25 crystals that you can get there. A lot of them I do carry in my shop, which will be on hiatus for a little bit, but I do go into them and how to work with them.
You happen to know one of those stones that you can only get into one sacred space? Yes, it's that stone.
Well, two of them I wear. I mean, constantly. Right there. My sarsen stone and my Perseuli blue stone. But yes, I left my sarsen stone. I left my Perseuli blue stone. I left my Irish amethyst. I left my Scottish agate. Like literally, and then my Michigan copper. Like, because I need to amplify stuff too with my copper. And then I'm very, very excited. I just changed the weekend because I'm going to do both virtual and in person for Metamorphosis weekend. And I thought, wow, how cool would it be to do that over Ostara spring equinox? So that will be on March 21st and 22nd. So we will do a spring equinox ritual. If you're in person or virtual, you can watch it and join. So those are just some of the upcoming classes, and you can find those classes in my bio. So, but we're going to jump into the book. So I just kind of talked, Bren, about like this chapter 5 is on the goddess. So we're really jumping into like the good stuff. And right before I decided to take a little break and go over some of the classes and workshops that I had coming up, I talked about how, there probably was a misbalance when it was completely a matriarchal society, because we know that the goddess was the only deity worshipped before Christianity. And then when Christianity came out, it became all patriarchal. And I don't know about you, but I personally believe we have to have that balance. If we don't have that balance, I mean, this is why we have like a lot of weird things. Like we're missing that nurturing and that loving aspect. I don't know, your thoughts?
That's a definite, because there is also that belief that well, it's not really a belief, but it's just like how the natural order is. You can't have one without the other. And even like when it's kind of like the concept with the pendulum. You swing it hard one way, it's going to come back down the other way just as hard. So in a way, it's somewhat kind of the same. You could say the same thing that's happened, but now it's just like the masculine is going really high up there, but it's starting to lose its reach, and now it's got to come back down the other way.
Yes. And I think that's also why we have a lot. I mean, because I'm sitting there, I was like having the discussion with my husband, which, I'm like, does it just seem like there's a lot of narcissists out there? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, gonna throw this out there. Do you think it has anything to do with spirituality and with God worship versus having God and goddess worship? My husband's an atheist, but he does love having these conversations. And he's like, oh, yeah, there's definitely, he's like, I think that probably does have an impact. And when we look at, some of these world leaders that are out there, like I'm thinking of multiple countries, it's like they need a little bit of that. Did they lack it? I mean, like also, does it lack, um, generate the generation before baby boomers were not like didn't show a lot of affection. Affection was not like something that you showed, and so baby boomers really didn't show a lot of affection. So Generation X, we had to take care of ourselves.
And that does also remind me another thing too that popped in my head too. A lot of like the countries, like the leaders, there's not a lot of women being the main heads. Which, truthfully, I mean, I'm just going to say this just as a curiosity point. I mean, what were to happen if it was just the other way around for a little bit? Now that makes me curious.
Well, and there have been, I mean, like England had a female prime minister for a while. I know she wasn't really liked, but yeah, because like actually it's been a while because it was Margaret Thatcher in like what, the 80s?
Was Margaret Thatcher.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Germany's got I think they still have a female right now.
Yes, I believe she is a female.
We can count them probably on one hand.
And that even does also kind of make you wonder too. It's like in the biblical perspective, like how it doesn't even mention him having a wife, but in the historical evidence and looking back, it shows that Ashura was his wife. And then she just disappears out of the Bible, just disappears like poof. I don't know. It's giving closeted vibes, like trying to keep the wife out of the loop while you go around, doing other things.
Yeah, it is very interesting when we, well, and I think I said this when we started the book, but my dad was really into the cult we grew up in. And at one point I asked a question about the goddess because I was like, curious. And he said that there is a heavenly mother, but she is very protected by the Godhead, which would be Heavenly Father, God, or Jesus and the Holy Ghost. And I was like, well, why don't we talk about her? Why isn't she, and he's like, well, it's subtle. He kept saying it's subtle, but my father actually did believe. So that I thought was pretty impactful because my dad was pretty knowledgeable on like, boy, he could recite so many things from the Bible. I was like, whoa, but.
Yeah, but I think it's also like, well, if it is, well, would it be what is known as Sophia? As whom it is?
He never gave a name.
And I mean, I can completely understand because if that divine mother figure is so heavily protected, it really makes you think. And actually, now that makes me even take a moment to step back a little bit and think, if that's the reason why that she isn't really spoken about, just to protect her. Now that honestly is both. Well, I mean, there's a positive and a negative about that. It's positive because it shows that how devoted and how protected they are in ensuring that that doesn't get affected or tainted. But at the same time, it's not allowing it to expand. And if there's one thing for certain we've kind of seen when we have any kind of organization or people or person try to grab divinity and twist it into whatever they want it to be, it turns on itself just to free itself.
It does.
Happens time and time again.
It does. Well, and an interesting fact, and I've read this multiple times over probably the last, I'd say, 2 decades, that more and more people are leaving their religions that they're in. And it did say Christianity is seeing the biggest amount of people leave. And they said they are literally going to occult practices because it's more of a spiritual practice and instead. And one article I will never forget, it talked about how a lot of people felt like, there was a goddess and that the goddess was being quieted.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Really makes you think, like, so what's the big deal? Why are we playing, trying to keep it under wraps?
Yeah.
You're not going to lose her. The more you keep her tied up and bound, the more likely she is going to go.
Right. Well, and then what can, like, there's so much that can happen. Like when we say tied up and bound, like she can come out and be very destructive. Or, I mean, are we going to get another imbalance? I mean, I'm hoping with the predictions with the age of Aquarius, there's supposed to be balance. We're supposed to have balance between the masculine and the feminine. So, I mean, we won't know until, hopefully we'll still be around when this happens. But there is a lot of changes going on.
And that does make sense because Aquarius, believe it or not, is a sign that it is tightly associated with the hermaphrodite, because it is one of the very few signs that's been depicted as being multiple genders, and it's the only child of the zodiac, the only one that's a child. Because there's the depiction of the one from Vedic, which is an elderly man with the urn, and he's pouring it over his shoulder. Then you have the maiden with the urn, and she's twirling with the water and throwing it all over the place. Then you have a small child lifting the urn up to Zeus, so he can drink from it. And then also, you can even also say the goddess Newt is also Aquarius, because it's known that she carries an urn with her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and then I love these discussions because as we talk, it like expands our mind too.
Yeah, and I just got covered in goosebumps.
Right?
Like whole body goosebumps. I know I said something right.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to jump in. So we are reading Spiral Dance by Starhawk. This is the rebirth of the goddess. And this is literally chapter 5, the goddess. So she's kind of built us up to get us to this chapter. And so we're going to dive in. The first question, what does the goddess symbolize for modern women? And I don't want, she really does concentrate on it being modern women. Also keep in mind, this was written, oh gosh, I can't remember if it was the 80s or the 90s now. It's been a while since it's been out. So we need to keep that in mind because now we have a lot of different things. So, but what does this symbolize? Because we have a lot of, I'm just going to say all the genders. Like, how does the goddess symbolize all the genders? Because I know a lot of people that are like, I just need the goddess in my life, regardless of gender. So, thoughts, Bryn?
Yeah, well, it's fun because that's kind of like the route that I go. Because if you notice, the times where, like, if anybody knows the practice that I have, it's mainly goddesses. And it's not that I have anything against the male gods, but it's just I'm just more drawn to the goddesses. And in a way, it's hmm, it's because the one thing that everything has in common that exists, it all yielded from a mother. Every single thing yielded from a mother figure. Whether anybody wants to say, well, what about this person that, is a male and they actually developed in that guy and then they birthed it that way? That's still the process of motherhood.
Yeah.
Because there was a story about somebody having that happen. They wanted to experience it and that's how they wanted to do it. Then they did it that way. That is still a motherly thing. It's like you may think it's too thin, yeah, but the concept is still there. Carrying a child in the womb, that's what it is. It's the same thing. It's just a plumbing's different, but the concept it still went through the exact same thing. So it's like in a way where no matter which way you turn, whichever tries to that's a weird way of putting it. However you try to bamboozle nature, she'll always come through saying, "Oh, you're doing what I do. Okay, yep, I'm still involved in this." And that's something where you have to really take a step back and think she is always going to be there somehow, some way, subtle or really like noticeable. But it's like that's something that only the goddess can do that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and also, like, because we have a more patriarchal society, we see comments making females the weaker of the sex. And I can tell you from
Oh,
giving birth to children, no, like there would not be any life would have stopped if men had to give birth. I,
yes,
yeah, I mean, I know enough men.
it is. And truth be told, and I mean, here's some of the facts now backed up by science. Like one of them is that it is said that the female brain is a lot smaller than the men's. But at the same time, that's an advantage. That makes women phenomenally more intelligent because the brain's smaller and the pathways are shorter. Men, it's bigger, so it takes a little longer for the information to come through and stick. That's the science. Don't look at me. That's what's been proven.
Yeah. Well, and we can think of it like a lot of different ways too. I mean, um, like I remember my brother, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how you women do it." He would, and being around like his ex while she was pregnant and then the whole giving birth process, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, it really isn't." And I remember my brother's like once I had the flu, everybody in the family had the flu, and me, my mom, and my sister, we just kept going. And my dad and my brothers were laid up, like they couldn't function. And I'm like, so like we think about that, and maybe that has something to do with our brain too. Maybe our pain receptors or something. I don't know. Um,
I would think, yeah. I think I think there was also another study too that, of course, women do have a much higher pain tolerance because of that that quality of developing a child and going through all that. They they have a much tougher pain tolerance, and I mean, even in nature, when you see a mama bear get furious to go swinging, well, let's just say when mother says, "Sit down." Yes, you sit down.
and that's a beautiful example. Like the bears, like they have said, like mother bear attacks are worse than like, especially when you're looking at grizzly bears that can get to be really huge. That even though the female bears are smaller, like maybe only 400 to 600 pounds, if they're protecting a cub, watch out. And on another side note, I love watching nature videos, but they had, because like wolves were hunted almost to extinction, at least in North America, actually, probably around the world. And so they had found a couple females and they had put cameras, the trail cams near their dens. And a bear found the cubs in the spring. And it was a male grizzly bear and he was a big boy, right? This mother wolf by herself, I mean, was gonna fight to the death. And like that bear went away not doing so well. And, when you look, even if you take a small bear and compare it to a wolf, a small bear is going to be double the size of a wolf. But this grizzly bear was huge. And she was like, "No, you're not getting to my cubs. Like, no, stay away." And like when you think about that, like mothers, like you don't make a mother mad. Like you really don't.
Step into her den. You don't step into her home. It's kind of like it reminds me of this one TV show I used to watch a long time ago. It was on True TV. I think it was crap. What was it called? But it was something. I think it was like Lizard like towing or something like that. And the wife of the owner of the business. Usually, every time somebody messed like was in her kitchen and made a mess, she always said, "Who messed up my kitchen?" Like yelled it, like, "Oh shit."
Yes. Yeah. Well, I used to, this is funny. So I had my kids believing this for the longest time until my oldest was smart enough to figure it out. Well, um, I always knew who did it because I had one child who would always get into trouble. Like, and I knew it was her, but she would, this kid, it was a daughter, obviously, she would freak out because you always blame me. You always blame me. Well, it was always her. So I was like, all right, I'll make it seem fair, even though I know it's her. I take Q-tips and put them in a snack bag. And I'm like, hey, I just ran the DNA on whatever it was they did, right? So if it was like leave food out, I let all the kids watch me, even though you can't use a Q-tip and stuff. And I'd see, all right, I'm going to send this out. And because I'm going to have to pay for this, this person's going to get in more trouble unless you confess now. I did get
That's
confessions.
clever.
Yes. Well, and it was a really great way because, like, my oldest and my youngest would be doing the eye roll because they knew they didn't do it. And then the middle kid, I was just trying to be fair to my middle child that was always doing always the problem. So, yes, anybody out there, there's some little parenting advice if you have multiple children. Until one of them figures out that you can't just walk in DNA to the police department to find out who got into the Cheetos. So, and it wasn't necessarily that. It was usually a little bit bigger than getting into food. But yeah, I also in my practice, I do work with Loki. I work with Odin and I work with Cernunnos, but I don't work with them all the time. Like they know I appreciate and love them, but I'm continually, like daily working with goddesses. So I think it does make a difference. Plus, I really felt like I was godded out because of the time frame I spent in a Christian religion. I know that sounds really weird to have too much masculinity, but it was
Yeah,
just,
I agree with that.
yeah,
Same thing with me because it's like, how come it's always he, he? I mean, I get it because in the English language, when you don't know a gender, by default, you're supposed to use he. But that's how it is with English.
yeah.
So it's like, can we just, can we also figure out why there isn't a she? Hmm.
Yeah, and even when I like do, I mean, this book is on the goddess, so I'm not going to substitute God for goddess. But even when I'm reading a lot of books from in the pagan community and everything, I usually like my brain is now automatically substituting deity because most people usually say God, even if they're talking about like Lilith, they might say God, and then you'll see them fix it later. But it's like either say deity or goddess.
Yeah, because it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yes, I've read, or I'm like, oh, they didn't have a very good editor, and some of them don't. I've noticed like some of the smaller publishers, I don't think they have like the best editors, but we at least get the content. So
Yeah, no, I mean, this is at least for me. It's like if you, oh, it just makes me think. Okay, God. Okay. Oh, you're talking about Lilith? But God, she. What? God. Oh, minor detail. Very minor detail.
minor, yes, yes, very minor. I don't know. So she was talking. So Starhawk talked about the goddess symbolizes female strength, authority, and the ability to create and sustain a culture that serves as a reconnecting force with lost potentials. And actually, I think that's right. Like, I think about it, and I'm just going to use my grandmother as an example. My grandmother was the glue that held the family together. She really was. She was the matriarch of the family. And when we lost her, it was like not that my grandpa wasn't, but it's like it was that moment that everybody realized, wow, like we lost connection with each other. Even people who lived in the same town lost connection with each other because the traditions and everything that she set up were no longer there. No one wanted to pick it up. And I know even she was very, I would go with her on Memorial Day and Labor Day and other holidays like Mother's Day and Father's Day. Like, and there were like birthdays and stuff. She'd call me up and say, "You're going to meet me at the cemetery or you want to come up to my house?" And we would literally go leave flowers and sit and chat with our past ancestors. And we would also clean around their headstones. So, well, they're in memorial gardens, so they weren't really headstones, so they're just the memorial plaques on the ground. Because, they don't do that in most of them. They usually just mow. They just mow right over everything. So the grass grows over, and sometimes you can't see all the names. And, you
That's, yeah. I mean, to be kind of truthful, I mean, it to me, if you're gonna be having your ancestor like be put anywhere, at least, I mean, this is just me though. It's like having to understand that, yeah, it's just I don't like walking anywhere like on top of like a site or anywhere like if it's not like evenly spaced, it just makes me feel like that just it just feels weird. But that's just me.
yeah. Well, and some of those really old cemeteries are not evenly spaced.
Yeah, and I also don't like the fact that some of them decided to um what's that called? It's like
Inter.
yeah, double up.
Hmm.
Now I look at that and I think, why are you being lazy? Don't be lazy. Don't put somebody on top of somebody else like that. Don't be lazy. Mm.
Yeah. Well, and it also, well, there's a lot, like actually, I've learned a lot about cemetery arts. Um, but after I moved out of Utah, my great aunt sent an email to everybody and said, "Does anyone know who was cleaning the headstones?" So after I left like the last couple of years I was in Utah with my grandmother before she passed, if I didn't go with her, she had to wait for my grandpa to go with her because she really like, and she didn't, and she couldn't trim around the headstones anymore, which actually, just so everybody is aware, around any memorial plaque or headstone, it is the family's responsibility. It is not the cemetery. So they won't go weed eat. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What? I want to.
Yes.
I want to hear that one more time to make sure I heard that
So around the memorial plaques or the headstones at cemeteries, it is the family's responsibility to clean around them. So make sure the grass is away, make sure the headstone is clean and visible to read.
right.
Um, yes. So
But
because the family buys the plaques and the headstones, so it's the family's purchase. It's not like you purchased the plot, they will mow, but they're not gonna like, that's why you don't ever see anybody edging around them. And when there's no family members left, that's when like mausoleums and headstones start to fall apart because there's no family members left. So,
no, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, that just rubs me the wrong way. That makes me think. So you have the audacity to sell something to somebody in your business area because it's in your business. Because yeah, it is a business. I'm just calling it that. But nonetheless, you're selling the land that the spot's in, and the plaque. Well, technically, that's part of like the whole land thing anyway. So it's like, why are you being lazy? Oh, that agitates me.
here's the thing, because I thought that too, Bren, and I've talked to a couple people who work at cemeteries. They don't make money. It's not a money maker. So, so you go in and you buy a plot, like that's it. Like you're not paying every month for it. Like you went in, you bought the plot, that plot's there. When you pass, you're buried there, your family member's buried there. So the sale's over. And so when the cemeteries, like, some of them here in Chicago are about 150 plus years old. Um, especially the ones that don't have room for active burials. They call them active burials if there's room. If there's not room for active burials, like there is no groundskeeper because there's no money coming in to pay maintenance. Like there's a little cemetery by a mall, by a shopping mall. I'm not kidding. And There's no grounds keep there. So like in winter it looks a little better. You can see the headstones, but by like this time of year, like you can't tell that it's a cemetery there.
Well, I mean, to be, yeah,
Yeah.
it still just makes me just want to say, oh, I don't make money. Well, that's cute. But the thing is that you chose this business anyway. You chose to do it.
Well,
So,
and a lot of them, what happens is of this state or the cities will take over. So the funding actually comes from the taxpayers. But if
oh,
you want to go in and fix a mausoleum, family has to give approval first. And so you have to prove you're a descendant. Now, there are ways around it if it's a military, especially like military from like the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, I believe up through World War One right now. Um, there are ways, if you know that there are no descendants and the headstone is damaged, that you can work with the State Department and
mhm,
replace it. And I'm going to throw this out there just for anybody watching because some people don't know this. I didn't know it. Granted, my grandparents did pick their headstones, so maybe they were kind of happy with them. But anyone who serves in the military, you have to serve. So if your spouse didn't serve, but you served, only you get it. The government, the United States government, will actually pay for your headstone. And
yeah,
headstones can be pretty pricey. So, something to keep in mind. And then if it ever needs to be replaced, a family member can put in the request. The request goes much faster if a family member does it. But if there's no living family members left, there is a way around it. It is kind of a hard way, but like I've worked with a couple different people helping restore old Civil War and Revolutionary War headstones in cemeteries where they're falling apart and you can't read them anymore.
yeah. And I mean, that, I mean, it's just simply advocating to be like, well, this person's headstone is like crumbling away. And I mean, that is a really, I mean, it just is
Yeah,
so
so
wrong.
at least our federal government replaces anybody who's been in the service. So
Yeah.
something to keep in mind, especially if you had like even a great grand like my great grandfather who served in the Union Army, he's buried near Andersonville because that's where he passed. His headstone is always taken care of. I don't know who in the family they reach out to, but his always looks good. Not like some of the smaller cemeteries, but if you go into a cemetery and you happen to find out if they have living relatives, it is much easier if there's a living relative. But if they're not, you can actually go in and talk to the cemetery and you can just say, hey, I noticed this Civil War headstone, or I noticed this Spanish American War headstone and it's damaged. Can I help? Can I help you get the paperwork done to have the federal government replace it? Because they will replace them.
Hmm.
So, and that's good to know. And I ran into so many people that were like, oh, yeah, my grandpa served during World War II. We didn't know that the government would pay for his headstone. It's not like it's a huge advertisement. I guess it is now. So, yeah, if you have any family member who served at all, unless they want like like they're just the government issue. So you can
Hmm.
get a cross, a Star of David, you can get a pentagram. I mean, like you can at least put your religious insignia on it. But you can't, like if they were like a deer hunter or like a golfer, you can't get that on it. So, if they had their heart set on having a golfer on their headstone, then you would have to pay for it because the government won't pay
Yeah,
you.
because it's not seen as something that's like legally protected, I think.
Yeah, yeah, which is fine. But it was kind of nice to know because I've had relatives way back that have served. So it was really nice to understand that, like, even if the headstone they picked falls apart, I can actually contact the federal government and say, hey, my great grandfather served in the army. Headstone's damaged. Can I get a replacement? So,
Nicer than me, I would be like, hey, yoo-hoo, hey, my great grandfather, yeah, his headstone is falling apart. Please fix it. Come on.
they do make you fill out paperwork and you do have to take it to the cemetery that it's at. So the manager of the cemetery will help you through the paperwork. But yeah, if anybody's dealing with that, um there you go. I know that has nothing to do with the goddess, but it's just,
Well, I mean, in a way, it
well, it
can, because,
did.
I mean, I could see it.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're taking the energy of the goddess and still Like, I mean, look at Hell for an example. The way that she is, talk about like Helheim. She runs like that giant soup kitchen, and she's just like, if you're gonna do anything with anybody who's passed away, don't make the wrong move. Because I'm gonna watch. Like, yes.
Yes, because our goddesses are mama bears, and a lot of the goddesses are associated with the spirit realm. So, which actually says a lot because, like look at Bridget.
Mm-hmm.
He's associated with birth and the spirit.
Forge and the forge. The
Yes.
What else? What else is she?
Fire, the forge. Yep. She's over the oh gosh. All of a sudden I'm breaking the sword makers and I'm forgetting what their real name is. It's all good. Blacksmiths. Yeah. There we go. Blacksmiths. It came to me. But the most important thing is she's over births, like live births, and the spirits. So that says a lot that she's that protective mother over everybody, no matter what form you're in.
Mm-hmm. And even also with how, the other crap. What's her name? Mamam Bridget. It's even also, well, again, this is just what I've heard. It seems that Bridget also, like, in a way, adapted to voodoo in some way in that regard too. Like, I know Baron Baron Samhain or Samdai. I'm saying his name wrong. But then there's also Mamam Bridget, who is also known to be very, very protective of the ancestors. Like, don't mess with them, because she will be like, "Oh, you think you're just gonna mess this up? Oh no, you're."
Yeah. Yep. So our goddesses are very protective of us. They will have your back. All right. How should one connect with the goddess?
Well, I mean, truth be told, however one deems fit, as long as it's sincere from the heart.
I agree with you there. Starhawk says that we can connect with the goddess through nature and manifestations in life. We can engage with the earth, moon, stars, and the body to allow us to establish a real connection with her. I think first and foremost, for me personally, find out about the goddess, find out about their mythology and folklore, find out what their interests are, what are their associations and correspondences, what offerings do they want and don't they want, because we don't want to give the wrong offering. And then there's lots of forms that we can connect. I personally have really good experience with meditation and actually walking in nature. Like, if I know that, they like trees, I will go near trees. If they like a specific flower, I will go find those specific, if I have them in my garden, or if there happens to be like a park that has them.
Mm-hmm. And another, well, at least again, this is just when you're like, because there is that aspect of like the goddesses that are most associated and tied to like the maiden variation, which would be like Bastet, because I know Bastet's a maiden primarily. Then there's also, you could say, I'm trying to think. I'm playing Dig Dug in my head. I'm trying to dig out another one. Where the heck is it? Crud. Wait. Oh, no, that one. Yeah. I'm looking at one and she's just laughing at me. I'm like, okay, I get it. You're thinking that it's all cutesy and funny, whatever, but as soon as I'm about to say it, it goes right out of my tongue again. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. Oh, Sedna. Sedna is a maiden because she passed away as a child, and she is that exiled daughter. Which again, that's still the main archetype. It's heavy, but yeah. Then when we move over to the mother aspect, now we have upon, oh my gosh, good lord, like how many? A lot. Like you can say, well, of course we have Queen Hera, which funny enough, that's who it was. Queen Hera as a maiden, well, that's the bride. Then when you go into the mother aspect, that's the mother.
Yes.
Right, queen. And then you have the widow as her last aspect, the widow, because that's the aspects of woman through unionship at first, then motherhood, wife, and then the elder aspect, which is the widow, the one that has to go on with the other person. But when we get into like say the elder, most of the elder goddesses, based on what I've seen, they are usually more drawn and they appreciate more the time that you give them and the effort you give. I mean, especially with Hell, with my experience, she has been like, why are you giving me so much shit? Why don't you just live your life how you want to live? I'll be happy with that. Stop giving me all this stuff. And I mean, truth be told, I used to like crowd like her space with a lot of things. And the reason why it was so crowded is that I kept offering things, and especially things like I left an apple there and I did not touch it, even though it was starting to like decay away. I never touched it. I just let it just stay there and go through its source. And after a while, I had to get rid of it because it was starting to become a health hazard. But that's a small thing of realizing, okay, so she is about, the process of decay and going from one in the natural order, not letting anything disturb it. So when you're honoring even just something simple as that does kind of show that you understand what they're advocating about and prioritizing. Or it's the natural order, meaning that no matter how much you try, no matter what you try and do, you can try and bribe death, you can try and woozy-woo it. She'll just still say, "That's cute. It has to go," and that's sacred. Decay is just as sacred as whatever I can't even. What would you say that?
Birth.
Birth. There you go. I was about to say, what the heck is the opposite of growth?
A seedling
Yeah, there we go.
coming from the ground. There we go. That works a little better. So, ironically, you brought up like the next thing is what are the three aspects of the moon goddess that Starhawk mentions, which you actually just said all three: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And so the maiden is the waxing moon, the mother is the full moon, and the crone is the waning moon. And they do embody the different stages of life and creativity. And we have so many examples with goddesses. Bren brought up a couple, but we've also got like Hecate and the Morgan.
Yep, and in the Vedic tradition, the waxing and waning and the full moon and then the new moon, each one of those, funny enough, does also represent the, because there is this system called the Titi goddesses, and each phase of the moon, waxing, full, waning, no moon, is associated and tied to a specific goddess. Like, for example, the one that I was born under, the Shami Nitya, and that one is a Shokla, which is a waxing. That shows the goddess being more out there, more expressive, more like, oh, I just want to connect to people. I want to see what it's about, be more external, while the waning is more, and that's called a Krishna titi. It's when it goes more within the self and tries to go back in and just be more reserved. But when it's Amavasaya, that's when the moon is completely pitched out, and that's known as a Chittara. And that one is where you have either Makali or Chittaria as the primary titi for that. But you can see how those aspects, the aspect of it is still going. It's like the crone that's revealed, or like it's the mother that's revealed, and then there's the mother that's in shadow.
Yes. Have lots of fun. All right. Okay, so she also talks about how the goddess embodies creation and destruction.
Oh.
Yes. Which,
Yes.
I mean, really, when you think about it, every goddess has an aspect of light and dark. Like, even Mother Gaia does. And
yes,
they're related to the seasons. So, Brian, I'm going to let you take it because I can tell you're really excited about this one.
Yes, because ultimately, like, we're probably the best example of Ma Kali. When that one Asura was thinking that he was the hot stuff, and he's like, aha, nobody will be able to get rid of me now. Now what? Then Durga's like, oh, this little one thinks he's cute. Okay, that's it. Manifest Ma Kali, and yeah, she just kept spinning like a tornado of blades and just ending one after another. It kept multiplying. So that's when she's like, okay, I'll just do this then. Starts going off with their heads and then consuming their grape juice. At the same time, that destruction, yeah, she got rid of it, but then all the other devas were just saying, we got a problem here, Mahadev. Oh, what would that be? Yeah, Ma Kali, yeah, she's not stopping. We have an issue here. I know just the thing. What are you gonna do? Just watch. Mahadev, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you laying perfectly flat? Shh. Here comes Ma Kali, spinning, still throwing blades all over the place, things going absolutely havoc. She just simply puts her foot right on his stomach. She stops, looks, and goes, what have I done? Wait. Oh my, what have I done? And she completely stops and turns back into Parvati. And then that's like that symbolic representation of destruction, stopping, rebirth, coming back as Parvati. So that's one example of the beginning and also the end, this life, and then the kick in the bucket phase. Because whenever something kicks the bucket, something new comes from it. Funny way of putting it.
Yes. Well, and I like to think of Demeter. Because remember, she started a famine. She made sure that there were no crops until she got her Persephone back.
Yeah, and there was even, I think after when Persephone finally came back too. Now this one might be going a little bit more deeper, but Persephone's sister Desponia, being the goddess of winter, she was the one that was so upset that she was outcasted by Demeter that it was her that actually caused the big winter to end all the crops. But that's another variation that kind of does also. But then, yeah, that's another variation too that makes you think, it kind of, wow, I just got goosebumps again. Wow, okay. Whoa.
Well, even when we look at like the goddess Brigid, Imbolc is her big holiday, but a lot of people do celebrate her on Samhain also.
Mm-hmm. My mom Bridget.
Again, have the cycle. And so there's a lot of goddesses there. And even like Sekhmet. For destruction, cleansed everything, and then everything was how it was supposed to be. So goddesses do embody creation and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like when you think about it. So, the west coast of the United States is all desert. So we're kind of talking from like Montana down the line, west. And it's very deserty, very dry, and it's important because stuff doesn't, like our foliage, our trees, they don't come back. They need that fire to rekindle the earth and destroy the earth so it comes back anew.
Yeah, and there's even some plants that only grow in that environment, like the cacti.
Yes.
They only grow in that environment, and it's like, it kind of shows how, despite how the environment of nature is, life somehow is able to adapt on its own, just by itself.
So, like, even the sequoias, if anybody's ever been to Sequoia, oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous there. I honestly put it on your bucket list if you've never been there, out in California. They do wrap the trees when the forest fires are coming close, or they think they're going to be close. But for the sequoia to actually rejuvenate and grow like the new ones, they have to have that fire, that cleansing fire. So we can think of the goddess as like the phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Rises from the ashes.
Mm-hmm. That gives another symbolic, symbolism of immortality too.
Yes.
Like you can't enter because she'll just be like, okay, that was a good run. Okay, we're back again. Okay, let's do it.
All right. So the next question, a couple of the questions were kind of the same that I had written down. So I don't think I'll have 10 for this whole chapter. But what's the significance of rituals being joyful and pleasurable?
Now, when we think about joy and pleasurable, that also shows, I mean, at least for me, the amount of uniqueness that you can have while doing those rituals. For an example, you can do rituals of like giving reverence and recognition in a manner that is the most meaningful to you, and it's something that is natural. And what is natural for somebody else may not be natural for another. But at the core, it's still going from that same core of like giving that recognition, but it's just in a different manner. Like, for example, you can have somebody be an artist. They actually make some of these artistic paintings. That's how they do it. Then you have another one writing literature, and that's how they do it. Then there's even also people that do acting, and that's how they give their reverence. But each one is still giving that same core reverence. It's just in a different manner.
Yeah, I know. I always like when I'm done doing my sabbats and my SBATs, I always just feel so refreshed. And that is like this very calm, tranquil pleasure that we don't just get from everyday life. And it's also like and some people that are in organized religion may have completely different experience than mine, but like going to like mass or sacrament type meeting, I never felt that. I mean, occasionally I'd be like inspired because somebody would say something inspiring, don't get me wrong there, but I never felt like I could just like float and that I was just extremely joyful and in a new place. And I really do get that. Now, I do know people who get that in their religious organizations. And yes, every religion does have some type of ritual. So, but yes, in the craft, we are connecting with nature. We're connecting with the goddess, sometimes the god, depending on your practice. And some people don't, some people just are connecting with nature, and that just can bring immense joy and pleasure into your life. So, okay, so here is like this, I think, is a really important question, especially if you're like, okay, they're talking about the craft, they're talking about paganism / witchcraft. So why is it said the goddess does not demand sacrifice?
It's because if you demand a sacrifice, what you're doing is you're harming the goddess when you do that.
Well said, Bren. Yes, so it really, because the goddess loves unconditionally.
It's like,
And
why are you taking something that's living? Why are you ending it in my name when I made that?
yes, it's like, I made that. No, we treasure everything I made. So
And I mean, the same thing even also goes for like in Hell's case, it's like for example, the cemetery and also caretaking to the dead. Why are you disturbing what I'm caretaking to? It's that same thing. It's you're going like if well, this is the perspective I have going into a cemetery and being so hyper aware and very careful and like checking every step of the way. You're going in a way where you're having the awareness of how heavy every move that you make in her domain impacts it. And you're not wanting to make the wrong move that it defames or defaces what she's about, which is you going into the realm of the ancestors, you don't make the wrong move.
yes. All right, so this one, because we actually talked about anger before. So she does touch on anger and what role anger plays in the relationship with the goddess. And yeah, it was just a couple weeks ago we talked about anger.
Yep. And the they I mean they've even said before, don't make the king angry, but there is very few, if any, accounts where you have ever seen the queen get angry. Because everybody knows well, if they don't, they know now. In the kingdom, everybody thinks, oh, the king is the most powerful. Oh, no, 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 no. It's the queen. The queen's his backbone. Because if the king doesn't have a queen, he doesn't have anything driving. And the queen says, this is it. That's how it goes. The king enforces it.
And you know what? It is true. Like I've heard women like joke around and laugh, like they wear the pants in the family and that kind of thing. And my husband and I have had a couple of discussions, and he was like, there are times he's like, I might think you might be doing something like you're like very strong in your opinion, and he's like, I know not to fight and argue about it. Well, fine, we'll go with it. And if you make a mistake, if I make a mistake and he was right, I always tell him he was right. But he's like, a lot of times you're right there. You're right. And we did need to follow your guidance. And he's like, so sometimes I do have to like put my faith and trust you. So, and it does happen.
A lot of men don't even know that vital skill. I said it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Say it. Yeah, I said it. What you gonna do? It's the truth.
Exactly. Exactly. So she was also talking about, and this I thought was really like, I'm like, oh, too bad. Like I knew I'd read more on anger, but so anger, like Starhawk was talking about how it is actually a sacred energy that can change confrontation to becoming liberation. So instead of being repressed, it allows you to use your creative force and vocalize what you're not feeling is fair.
Yes. I mean, probably a good example would be, well, let's see. Well, I mean, there's also that incident involving Lilith when she said, "Oh, Yahweh, you're so cute, thinking I'm going to submit to this, and you? No, I'm out." And when she left, and then was in the cave with her children, with all those that she had them with, and then when the angelic order came and slew them, that rage that she had built up, that kind of rage, that begrudging and that vengefulness, that was that anger. She went back and said, so you're going to take away from me something that even I never experienced, having being a child and then growing up, never having that experience. You took away the one experience that I could have, being a mother, away from me. Okay, so no matter what happens, every person that comes out from those two is going to be infected with this virus called sin from that point onward. So that's a heavy way of like saying, you take away something important to me, now nothing's going to be pure ever again. And then she still took Adam out.
And, like I was thinking about it, like we see where people are enraged, and like even right now there's lots of protests going on in the United States. And it's important to get your voice out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have the same feelings. So it is really important for the voices to be heard. And that's that anger coming through. And that's where it will change.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to create change. And using it in a, I'm trying to think of like the best one.
Using it in a way where the gravity of it is felt, but it doesn't cause any kind of danger or physical, danger.
Yes, thank you, Bren.
But however, I will also sprinkle this in a little bit. Now, when it comes to, say, advocating for the self, if the self's put in that predicament, or like say significant other, that's a bit different. Because it's your being. Because I'm somebody that has that belief saying, if you're not in any way in the crossfire of it at all, in like wherever it's at, don't push yourself into that. But when it comes to you, that's different. You're not going out purposely being all like trying to like be a hunting attack dog to go after them. No. But when they come close, that's different. Advocating, and then when they try to do something to you, your advocation within the boundary, but if that boundary is not being respected, that's different. That's different. That can be adapted accordingly. But rage and anger, when strategically executed, can make that difference. And if it's not respected, Well, where's my small violin?
Yes, and we'll see things like recently. I know there's like that Koberger case that's going on in Idaho.
Oh,
Very, very sad.
yeah.
Um, he pled guilty. He took a plea deal this last week, and a lot of the family members have voiced that they're fine with it, and there's one family that's not fine with it, and you can tell that the father is very angry. Um, and I sympathize with that plight. I mean, how do you get over that? You know, and I think he's using his voice in a proper way to be heard, because we do need our anger to be heard. And I do like how she called it a sacred energy, because it can drive change, and that sometimes we need that change. And keep in mind, sometimes your voice may not make that change. Like, I know this father's really upset. I mean, I can't even imagine losing a child that way. And, you know, it's not probably going to change. Maybe it will change something. Who knows? But when your voice is heard, when that anger is heard and it's done properly, like Bren was able to actually articulate it much better than I was, like, stuck on trying to articulate it. But we need to be able to express it in a way. But yes, so anger is not always bad.
Yeah, and even like if you're aware that what you're going to be saying isn't going to change the world, what you can do is whomever you're directing it towards and speaking to, you can definitely use that to impact them to such an extent that they feel that whoops, and when you can do that, that's when that's when the anger does its job.
Yes.
Because like if like say for example like one of those school incidences that happened, there was the one I think it was in Florida where there were so many people coming up and they were saying all these things to that person that did it. Well, you can tell how he was covering his ears and covering his head like that. That shows you like that's that righteous anger coming around saying you still did this. It still happened. You had the lack of control, yes, but you still did it. So now this is the consequence of it, and you have to face it. And he could not bear listening to it, but still did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the hardest example, but yes. And that's like a great way to use your voice if you have that ability to use your voice in that way.
And it's, in a way, it's also using your voice for somebody who cannot use their voice.
Yes.
And that's very important. And when you're using not only your voice, but theirs, that's like double the heaviness and the anger that it hits twice as hard. But that sometimes even having stuff like that being broadcasted shows to the public like this is an example of what happens when you don't check yourself, you don't have control of yourself, when you're not taking that initiative for yourself. All this righteous anger is going to come back around and then make you face it, and now you're in a position where you lose a lot because you didn't check yourself.
Yeah.
Very important.
Very, very important. All right. So she ends with the charge of the goddess. And she asks, what does the charge of the goddess tell us about the importance of the community in witchcraft? And I do think this is really important because I think a lot of people, you know, have different stereotypes. And this is a way for us during this book club and during reading this book to be able to say, hey, you know what? There is a very big spiritual aspect. So, Bren, what does the charge of the goddess tell us about the importance in community in witchcraft?
Well, I would have to say the most, it's that, well, for one thing, the impact that it does on the community, it shows the vastness of creativity and how it can be expressed, and how many unique ways it can be presented. And of course, with the stereotypical things like, oh, riding the broomstick, okay, yeah, whoop-de-woo. But when we have things like that, it is still giving that homage. It is still honoring how, okay, so how did that come about? Well, it was intended because of this and then using it that way. But still, there was a process with that. Creating something like the goddess does, creates something and merges all these other things together. For an example, again, you have the herbs that were mixed together. Each one is a specific thing. A specific member of the community comes together into one. This community comes together, gets mixed together, makes something brand new, and then is used on the broomstick. Something brand new coming in. Everybody's playing their part for the. I just realized what I was making, because it's just like, okay, all the pleasure and the enjoyment of the goddess. There we go. Well, there you go. A really awkward way of putting it, but that's how it came out. So that sounds like exactly what Baba Yaga would say. Funny.
So if we think about it, like I gave the example of my grandmother, how she was the glue that held the family together. Like she literally, you knew it was an open invitation every Sunday. She had dinner at 2 p.m. Like it was like you could show up or not show up. She made enough food for everybody and their dog, and she'd send you with leftovers. I went to every single one I could, especially once I started driving. I was like, I'm going. The charge of the goddess is really emphasizing that community and where individuals come together and share their experience with the divine. And this is something that the goddess does. It's out of that unconditional love and bonding. And so that's something that the charge of the goddess really stresses. And thank you, Doreen Valente, for bringing the charge of the goddess back to us, because she's the one that brought it back. And if I'm wrong, someone can please correct me, but I'm pretty sure it was Doreen Valente.
I think it was too. I think it was. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that was chapter 5. So we didn't get as many likes tonight. So if you're still on watching, don't forget to give us some hearts. And please don't forget to follow us if you're not following us. We are live on every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 30 p.m. Pacific. Mm-hmm. Yes, I know. I'm like sitting there trying to do the math. It will be so much easier when I'm in Wyoming. Yep. So we will be live on Tuesday. So Tuesday is Tuesday Tarot. We're going to be talking about the Empress card.
Oh, that's funny, because it's like, oh, look at that. It's the goddess right there.
Right. And she embodies the goddess. Like everything is just shifting together as it's supposed to. So the Empress on Tuesday. We will talk a little bit about the Empress card. I think we've been between 30 minutes to an hour. And then we do card readings if you want a reading. So we'll be ready with many decks of cards. I have many decks of cards here reading.
And I know, because I know Empress is probably going to be a really interesting one, because some of the tarot decks I have, like for example the Rainbow Tarot, the Empress card has a different name in that deck, because it's a male deck. Yeah. It makes you think, I wonder what that would be. You'll have to wait to see, because how the creator made it was perfect, absolutely perfect on how he was able to make the Empress become this instead. It was beautifully done.
There's I wish I had hadn't had most of my tarot packs packed, because I have a lot that they're all different. But I was like, can't dig through those. Maybe at the tail end I'll pull out some other ones, but as I reconnect. So, all right. Any last parting words? Anything else you want to share before we say goodbye, Bren?
Well, and I've been contemplating that, I really need to start doing lives again, and I don't know what the heck has been making me not get the motivator to the tush to do them. So I would have to say probably in an hour or so I might be doing a live. Maybe I might be doing ghost tube stuff. I don't know. I'm just gonna give myself the motivator to the tushy to just do it and get on it. But we'll see. So yeah. Better than that, so long. Wait, first up. Farewell. Give me the book again. So long, farewell. Every time I forget the words, we'll do this next week.
Show me the way to go home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. Yeah. And I won't do any more because I think all the words after that are TikTok banned. So And I do think it's actually kind of funny to sing that one. All right. So join us on Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Tuesday Tarot. As always, merry meet, merry part, bright blessings, and namaste.